requires a robust industrial base. So leaders endorsed the new Defense Production Action Plan. This will accelerate joint procurement, boost interoperability, and generate investment and production capacity. To do all this, we need to invest more in defense. Our latest estimates show that defense expenditure by European allies and Canada will increase by 8.3% in 2023. This is the biggest increase in decades. Since 2014, they will have invested an extra $450 billion in defense. 11 allies now reach or exceed the 2% benchmark, and we expect this number will rise substantially next year. Today, to invest at least 2% of gross domestic product annually in defense, and to do more urgently to meet their commitments. NATO leaders also addressed China. China is not our adversary, and we should continue to engage. But Beijing's increasing assertiveness affects our security. China is increasingly challenging the rules-based international order, refusing to condemn Russia's war against Ukraine, threatening Taiwan, and carrying out substantial military buildup. China's nuclear modernization is unprecedented in speed and scale, and being carried out with no transparency. Allies agreed to continue working together to protect against China's coercive behavior. And tomorrow, we will meet the leaders of Australia, Japan, New Zealand, and South Korea, as well as the European Union, because we are stronger and safer when we stand together. And with that, I'm ready to take a few questions.
We'll start with Washington Post, there in the middle. Yeah.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. Michael Birnbaum from the Washington Post. President Zelenskyy, of course, issued a tweet in the middle of your talks that criticized the language that you just agreed to on Ukraine's path toward membership. I was wondering what your thought was when you saw what he was saying about what NATO was agreeing to, and what your message would be for Ukrainians who are disappointed by this language. Thanks a lot.
What allies have agreed today is a strong, united and positive message to Ukraine about enduring support, but also a positive message on the path forward for membership. And this includes this package of practical support to enable full interoperability between Ukrainian armed forces and NATO forces, the establishment of the NATO-Ukraine Council, and then the decision to remove the requirement for a membership action plan, which actually means that instead of 2 steps to become a member, there will now be 1 step. And we also made it clear that the invitation will be issued when conditions are met. Then I would like to add that on top of that, of course, allies are also providing substantial military support, because the most urgent task now is to ensure that Ukraine prevails, because unless Ukraine prevails, there is no membership issue to be discussed at all. And therefore I welcome the military support that the allies have provided now for months, actually starting back in 2014, and then since the full-fledged invasion in February last year, substantially stepping up their support. And just over the last few days, allies have made substantial new announcements. France has announced that they will deliver long-range cruise missiles. Germany just announced a new package with air defense and armored vehicles. And the US made yet another big announcement of more military support. And many other allies have made different types of support, including the establishment of coalition to provide training for F-16. This is a strong message which sends a positive and united message to Kiev.
We'll go to the Ukrainian news agency in the 3rd row. Yeah.
Dmitry Shkurko, National News Agency of Ukraine here. Thank you for the floor. Question, just follow up my colleague. Can we expect today a final communique on Ukraine, and we can expect it tomorrow? And could you please specify what kind of conditions Ukraine still need to fulfill to initiate the accession procedure and to get an invitation? Thank you.
So we have agreed a communique, and we also agreed a package for Ukraine. That was agreed by the leaders, and I referred the main elements now. The practical support, the political ties with the NATO-Ukraine Council, full interoperability, the removal of the membership action plan, and then, of course, also all the different things that allies are providing bilaterally, including with the new announcements we have heard today and the last few days. I have been in close contact and regular contact, and NATO allies have also been in regular contacts with Ukrainian officials. I've discussed this also with President Zelenskyy, and I look forward to meet him tonight, and then also to have the inaugural meeting of the NATO Ukraine Council tomorrow, where I will set out the package of the three elements bringing Ukraine closer to NATO, and this is a strong package.
Okay, Reuters. Over there. Andrew, maybe you can just ask your question.
Andrew Gray from Reuters, Secretary General. To come back to President Zelensky's remarks, he said it would be absurd if a time frame is not set neither for invitation nor for Ukraine's membership. How would you respond to that specific point, and why have allies not set out a time frame today?
What we have agreed is a very substantive package with many different elements that helps to move Ukraine closer to NATO, help them to move towards NATO membership, and this is partly a very practical support on, for instance, interoperability, and reforms, defense sector reforms and interoperability are among the conditions which are important for membership. Moving Ukraine closer to NATO. Then we also send a strong political message with the language on membership, including the language which is now in the communique on invitation. So there's never been a stronger message from NATO at any time, both when it comes to the political message on the path forward for membership and the concrete support from NATO allies, military support, but also the practical support on how to ensure full interoperability. And if you look at other membership processes, there have not been time lines for those processes. They are conditions-based. Has always been.
Okay, we'll go to the gentleman here in the second row.
Lauri Nurmi, Iltalehti from Finland, Mr. Secretary General. The Baltic Sea becomes NATO's inland sea. NATO puts 300,000 new troops on high readiness. What does all this mean for frontline countries like Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Poland? And what is NATO's message to Mr. Putin and Russia? How historic is this moment? Thank you.
It is historic that both Finland and Sweden will become members of NATO. Finland is already a full member, and with the agreement that President Erdogan and Prime Minister Kristersson and I were able to make last night, Sweden has also become a full member of the alliance. This is historic. It's important for the whole alliance. It's important for Finland. It's important for Sweden. But it is also in particular important for the Baltic region, because when you look at the map, you realize that, for instance, the ability to reinforce the Baltic region is very much improved by the fact that we now have Finland and soon also Sweden as full members. And that will be reflected in our defense plans, in our exercises, in our capability targets and everything else we do as an alliance. So it makes the whole alliance stronger, and it makes especially the Baltic region safer. It sends the message that NATO's door is open. It sends the message that it's for NATO allies to decide on enlargement. It's not for Moscow to deny sovereign nations the sovereign right to choose their own path. And this is, again, something we have demonstrated not only in words, but also in deeds by now allowing 2 new members and sending a message to Ukraine, which is stronger than any message NATO has ever sent before on membership for Ukraine.
We have the gentleman over there in the 3rd row. Over there.
European Pravda, Ukraine. Secretary General, I would ask you to clarify a bit on conditions. I understand that you cannot list all of them. It's probably not clear, but maybe you see how these conditions would be defined, agreed, because I'm afraid that it would be read that NATO has lifted membership action plan, but have invented another membership action plan with another name, which is conditions. So it's like making a bit of fake achievement. Thank you.
No, what we say in the communique is that Ukraine has moved beyond the requirement for a membership action plan, just because Ukraine has come much closer to NATO. I was actually attending the NATO summit in Bucharest in 2008 as a Norwegian Prime Minister, and I remember very well the discussion there. And of course the discussion now is totally different for many reasons, not least because Ukraine is under full-fledged attack by Russia, but also because Ukraine has come so much closer to this alliance over all these years, because especially since 2014, when NATO allies start to train and equip Ukrainian armed forces, but even more so after February last year, Ukraine has demonstrated capabilities, skills, and has been more and more integrated with NATO. This is also a consequence of the equipment which NATO allies are delivering, because, for instance, when battle tanks or advanced air defense systems, a consequence of that is also more interoperability, more NATO standards, doctrines, and a gradual movement from the Soviet era doctrines, standards and equipment to NATO, just by the fact that so much equipment is now delivered. And of course, when we start training with training of pilots for F-16s, it will even more add to this important interoperability, which has always been a requirement for NATO membership. So this is moving Ukraine closer to NATO and to NATO membership, and also reflecting the fact that NATO has come much closer. Well, we have conditions partly in Article 10 of the Transatlantic Treaty, the Washington Treaty, and then, of course, at the end of the day, it has to be allies that assess whether conditions are fully met or not, and that's exactly what allies then have to agree, and therefore we also refer to both the conditions, but also the need for all allies to agree. That's the way we make decisions in NATO.
Politico. Politico here.
Thank you, Secretary General. Just to follow up on this important topic, I have in front of me the text from 2008 from Bucharest, which we've all been reading and rereading over the past weeks. NATO welcomes Ukraine's and Georgia's Euro-Atlantic aspirations for membership in NATO. We agreed today that these countries will become members of NATO. So if you were explaining just to the average citizen in the alliance and in Ukraine, people who are really keen to understand what was decided today, how would you explain the difference between the text that was agreed in Bucharest in 2008 and the specific language that was agreed today?
is that I think the next sentence, or at least a bit further down, we say that the next step is membership action plan. And that's exactly what we removed today. And at every summit since 2008, we have said Ukraine will become a member. The next step is membership action plan. Now we remove that. So that's actually turning this process, which has always been 2 steps, into 1 step. That actually moves Ukraine closer to membership, and it's a significant difference from the 2008 language, which has been reiterated at every summit since 2008. And it has been also a process in NATO to make that decision, because it was not was a straightforward decision to make. I'm glad that allies agreed. And package I launched in Oslo in May at the informal meeting, then it was, what should I say, there were questions asked whether that was to move too fast. And therefore, I'm glad that since May, since we started this discussion of removing a map requirement, all allies today have agreed to remove a map requirement. So that's difference number 1. Difference number 2 is that we actually now have a program for how to help and support Ukraine move closer to NATO. And that is the interoperability, the multi-year program, but also the strengthening of our political ties, and also reference to that the foreign minister will also in the text we agreed today, will regularly assess progress. So this, together with the fact that the substantial delivery of equipment and training just by itself moves Ukraine closer to membership, is a big difference. There is one more difference, and that is that in 2008, Ukraine was quite far from NATO. What has happened since 2008 has already moved them much closer to us.
Swedish radio. Second.
Are you guys good? Yes. Mr. President, it's good to see you again. I'd like to be with you, and we're this historic summit meeting, resolving a lot of things, I hope. And we made all the more historic by the agreement you reached yesterday and the addition of Sweden and how you're going to proceed. And thank you for your diplomacy and your courage to take that on. And I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. President. The summit is reaffirming our commitment to NATO. Thanks for close allies in NATO, and I hope we can make it even stronger. So welcome.
Sayın Başkan,
Mr. President,
değerli dostum,
my dear friend,
görevime yeniden seçilmem
I would like to
dolayısıyla
first of all thank you for congratulating me in the aftermath of my re-election to my current post. And I'm grateful for the congratulatory messages that you have extended to me.
stratejik mekanizma kapsamında
And within the framework of our strategic mechanism, I think it's high time for the heads of states to get together for further consultations. That's why
NATO marjında bu görüşmeyi
I believe
ilk adım olarak
today's meeting with you within the margin of the NATO summit is the first step forward. Our meetings prior to this were mere warm-ups, but now we are initiating a new process. This new process is a process of 5 years, and now you are getting prepared for the forthcoming elections. And with the forthcoming elections, I would like to take this opportunity to also wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to meeting with you for the next 5 years.
Mr. President,
Ukrainians who are still gonna have doubts.
President Zelenskyy called it. President Zelenskyy said it was absurd that Ukraine doesn't have a timeline for membership. What do you make of his comments, Mr. President? What's Ukraine's timeline for membership into NATO, Mr. President?
Mr. President, are you worried this proposal does not have the support of President Zelenskyy? Thank you so much, Hey guys, we're moving out. Come on. It's time to go.
Thank you.
It's time to go.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, no one's heading out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys.